You call it a new era of growth in your speech. Explain what's driving that growth.
I think there are 3 or 4 things driving the growth. First of all, the tax bill, which, by the way, has just been passed, and we still have to do the transition rules, but a tax bill that lowers taxes significantly for all kinds of corporations, a tax bill that gets American large companies away from having to pay a double taxation, both offshore and onshore, and they'll be able to bring more money home. A tax bill that allows immediate deduction of capital expenditures, and a tax bill that includes the middle class. And I believe that, and there's lots of other things in it, but I believe that's a fundamental change after 31 years since the last time we did this, and that should drive what we're doing. Second, this administration has been extraordinary from day one on reducing the explosion that came out of 8 years of the previous administration in regulation of just about everything in our lives. And we're making constructive reductions there, still keeping the important regulations we need for safety and national well-being. And third, we are having a vigorous debate about trade and what role that plays in the American economic system. And we are also having a very significant debate about entitlements, which, by the way, consumes most of our spending. And so I believe if businesses feel they've got a better tax deal, they've got a better regulatory environment, and the government is debating and looking at the fundamental questions of what they're worried about.
So starting with taxes, there's no one who would deny that this is a big deal. It is a big deal without a question. How do we make sure that it's distributed the right way through the economy? You raised this in your speech, actually. You talk about making sure the workers benefit. There's a lot of concern the corporations essentially will take the tax cut and give it essentially to their shareholders.
Well, let me make 3 points about that. It's their money to start with. It's not the government's money. The government gets the taxes they collect and they say, well, that's ours. No, that's the citizens and the companies who are corporate citizens money, and they're giving it, sharing it with the government for the public good. And so that's the first thing. Now, what they do with their money is important. What we really want them to do is grow their companies and then hire more people. We've had a half a dozen or a dozen companies that have demonstrated that they're going to give bonuses and they're going to do this and that. By the way, they haven't gotten any money from the tax reduction yet. We still have to do the transition rules. The Treasury Department's being very helpful. I think we'll get those done fairly soon. And by the way, it was just yesterday that all sorts of people in the Congress, in the press, were saying, well, we'll never get this tax bill. I mean, they're only just talking about it. Nobody's going to do it. And they won't get it done this year. I will tell you that the demand to get this tax bill was really a demand to get away from 2% growth into high 3% growth so we can start to employ people, drive this economy, and solve the nation's problems.
So the tax overhaul was last year. This year, one of the issues we have facing us is trade, something you addressed in your speech. And I want to quote from that. We'll put it up for our viewers to see. One of the things you said is, if we aren't leading on trade, we're falling behind, and that we're in danger. You said that you said this for years, and today we're seeing it happen. How big a problem is this?
95% of the people that we want to sell something to live outside this country. I'm all for the improved America, but only 5% of the consumers live here. So we need to be a trading nation, we need to be a trading country, and we need to have rules of the road. I have no problem with the administration wanting to bring Nafta up to date. After all, when we negotiated Nafta, and I had a small role in that, we didn't have the internet. So there are a lot of things to improve. And there was a time the administration was not happy about the South Korean agreement until they read it. And they found out it's a very strong, effective agreement. And so we're having some clean it up, improve it negotiations. And I think that's going to go very well. But if we quit on Nafta, If we pull that out of the wall the way the administration pushed aside the Pacific Trade Agreement, we're in a crisis. NAFTA has 14 million American jobs. NAFTA is $1.3 trillion in annual commerce between the three countries. And remember, every trade agreement of significance not only is manufacturing goods are traded, but services, but it's something else. It's geopolitics. It's on the Mexican border. It's dealing with transnational crime. It's dealing with the drug dealers. It's dealing with people trying to get into this country that are not from Mexico. And the bottom line, what we want next to us on both sides are productive, supportive governments. If you look at Mexicans' next election, if we screw this up, we'll have a Venezuela there.
So you make a very compelling case that we're a trading nation. Does President Trump understand that? Because we hear repeatedly that in the NAFTA negotiations, he is seriously contemplating walking away. From your best information, what is the risk that the United States will pull out of NAFTA?
Much less than it was 6 months ago.
Why?
Well, I think the people involved in this are getting a little more educated. For example, in the NAFTA agreement, we export $40 billion worth of produce and similar products. That would go away like that, just like that. And everybody that plays around and in government understands, don't fight with the farmers. It's a bad idea. Why do you think he just went down to talk to the agriculture people yesterday or the day before? Right. And my deal is they're getting smarter on this. They're realizing that there are things that they can fix. And one other issue, if they were to withdraw from NAFTA, there's a 6-month period of time for the Congress to have its voice. And I'll tell you, when you look at the states most affected by this, they're Democrats and Republicans, arm in arm, are going to get in that deal.
So finally, you make a compelling case again that people in the administration are coming to understand NAFTA better. What about China? There are pending proceedings right now on aluminum, on steel, various issues. Do you think that there's a similar movement within the administration to be more accommodative to China on trade?
Well, first of all, we think what the administration is doing with China is could be very constructive. It's important to go and do these studies and calculate the actual effect. But we have problems with China. We have problems in what they're doing in requiring technology transfer. We have problems in the theft of intellectual property. We have problems in treating U.S. companies, and by the way, companies from all over the world, differently than they treat Chinese companies. But in that context, we're also talking about one of the biggest and most significant economic players in the world. We're also talking about a very serious and very important country in terms of geopolitics, national well-being, national defense. So what we have to do is be tough on the economic issues so everybody plays by the rules, and fair and open and supportive on a lot of the other things we're doing with China. It's really going to have to be left hand, right hand. Don't try and do one and not the other.